Okay, so I'll talk about migrants in Lebanon. They are mainly an unskilled cheap labor. Around 250,000 are domestic workers, mostly women. They come from the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, and other African countries. They are subject to the kafala system or tutorship that puts them under the control of their employer. And around 300,000 men from Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, Egypt, and Sudan work in sectors that are under the labor law, gas stations, factories, cleaning sector, construction. We cannot but mention also the Syrian migrants, around 1 million refugees who fled the Syrian war and the Syrian regime. Some of them work in farms or the construction sector. Others have small businesses, are taxi drivers also, although it is illegal. And only half of their children go to school, around 200,000. Having said that, migrants who come from southern countries are in a general way subject to discrimination and racism by the Lebanese authorities, the population, and some media. They also face abuses and lack of protection, mainly domestic workers that are not under the labor law. And this situation worsened with the COVID pandemic. But things are starting to change very slowly, thanks to the joint forces of media, NGOs, and civil society. I would divide the media in two groups: the conservative or traditional publications that speak about migrants in the same old-fashioned way, using the wrong terms, ignoring their rights and the asset they represent for Lebanon. And the new trend media, printed or online, that defend proudly human rights, especially the most vulnerable populations, including migrants. The latter are gaining more and more visibility since the 17th October 2019 Lebanese revolution. Lebanon faces today a terrible economic and financial crisis, and the COVID crisis aggravated the situation. People lose their jobs, and not only they cannot longer afford to pay their foreign workers in US dollars, but they cannot even find dollars on the market. A lot of foreign workers lose their jobs too. Some Ethiopian the domestic workers have no more place to live because their employers abandon them in front of the embassy without money, without passport. Some Bangladeshi male workers in a cleaning company went on strike for a few days because their salaries were cut following the financial crisis and the confinement measures. Of course, what I call traditional media will cover these stories among others, but they will cover them from one point of view and only where there is a big issue. I mean, the death of a domestic worker, the death of an employer, a march, a riot, a scandal, or a corona contamination. And in their speech, in the way they explain the problem, they usually take the defense of the employer. They excuse his behavior, even though it's abusive, just because he's Lebanese. These media, for instance, will mention that a lot of Lebanese people have lost their jobs and that foreign workers are taking their jobs, which is not true because Lebanese people refuse to work as domestic workers in the cleaning sector, the agriculture, or the construction sectors. So these media, and among them some TVs also, consider migrants as a threat to the Lebanese population in time of COVID, because most of the migrant population, except the live-in domestic workers, live in communities in poor conditions, like Bangladeshi workers or Syrian refugees, for example. They can easily catch the virus and transmit it. This is what the media say. So it's necessary to confine them or to lock them up, to stop them from mingling with the nationals. And this speech of discrimination and hate is unfortunately very frequent in Lebanon. They would, for example, ask for the return of the Syrian Syrian refugees in their country, knowing that this is not possible now. We know, of course, that the coronavirus created also discrimination within the Lebanese population. So it's not only a speech that is used for migrant populations. So the new trend media work from a different perspective, close to the spirit of what we call the Saura, the Lebanese revolution. They fight for a nation based on social justice, where all people are equal and have equal rights. Some of them are printed and online papers like ours, L'Orient, Le Jour. Some others are just online media, blogs, NGOs publications, or even researcher publications. They are not only active, but very aggressive on social media, and they denounce the hate speech against migrants, workers, or refugees. They condemn also the abuse they face and fight for their rights. This commitment to migrants is the starting point not only of a campaign of solidarity to migrant workers, often led by youth, but it also pushed the authorities in 2019 to engage a reflection about the status of domestic workers and the whole kafala system that encourages abuse and even modern slavery. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you.